Today, we will work on a question that sits at the very foundation of reality. Why is the speed of light a limit? Not just a fast speed, not a technological barrier, but a fundamental boundary that nothing with mass can ever cross. Light does not slow down because space resists it. And objects do not fail to reach light speed because they are poorly designed. The limit exists for a deeper reason. In this documentary, we will explore why the universe has a maximum speed at all, what the speed of light truly represents, and what breaks down when something tries to go faster. We will follow the logic from classical motion to relativity, from energy and mass to space and time themselves. This is not about photons racing through space. It is about how space and time are structured. It is about why cause must come before effect, why information cannot arrive before it is sent, and why the universe enforces a strict speed limit to remain consistent. Everything you're about to hear is based on established physics, from Einstein's relativity to modern experimental evidence, explained carefully and without shortcuts. If you enjoy calm, long-form explorations like this, focused on understanding rather than spectacle, you can subscribe now and return whenever you want to think more deeply about how reality works. Now, let's begin with a simple question that turns out to be anything but simple. Why does the universe allow motion but not unlimited speed? For most of human history, speed was understood as something that could always be increased. If you pushed harder, you went faster. If you removed resistance, motion continued. There was no obvious reason to think that the universe itself would impose a hard limit on how fast anything could move. In everyday life, this intuition works. A thrown object slows because of friction. A vehicle has a top speed because of engineering limits. Remove those constraints and speed seems unbounded. Physics once shared this intuition. In classical mechanics, there is no maximum speed. Velocities simply add together. If you are moving at a certain speed and throw an object forward, its speed is your speed plus the speed of the throw. Nothing in the equations prevents the result from becoming arbitrarily large. For a long time, this seemed perfectly reasonable. But this picture contains a hidden assumption that time and space behave the same for everyone, everywhere. That assumption is wrong. The speed of light enters physics not because light is special as a substance, but because it reveals something deeper about how the universe is structured. The limit is not really about light at all. It is about causality, information, and the geometry of space-time. To understand why a maximum speed exists, we need to stop thinking of space and time as separate, independent backgrounds. They are not. Space and time form a single structure, space-time. Events do not happen in space and in time separately. They happen at space-time locations, and the way space-time is built places strict limits on how events can be connected. The speed of light is the boundary that separates what can influence what. If there were no speed limit, cause and effect would not be preserved. Events could influence other events before they happened. The universe would lose its internal consistency. This is not a philosophical concern. It is a mathematical one. In relativity, space-time is arranged so that every event has a light cone. The light cone defines which events can be affected by that event and which events could have affected it. Anything inside the future light cone can be influenced, anything outside cannot. The slope of that cone is set by the speed of light. Change the speed limit, and you change the structure of causality itself. This already hints at the core reason the limit exists. It is not an arbitrary rule, it is a structural requirement. But why that specific speed? Why is the limit the same for everyone regardless of how they move? This is where classical intuition fails completely. Experiments showed that the speed of light in vacuum is the same for all observers. Whether you move toward the source or away from it, you measure the same value. This result cannot be explained if time and space are absolute. The only way to make this work is to allow time and space themselves to change. When you move faster, time slows down for you relative to others. Lengths contract in the direction of motion. These effects are not illusions or measurement errors, they are real physical changes in how space-time is experienced. They occur precisely so that the speed of light remains constant. This constancy is not a property of light, it is a property of space-time. Light simply travels at the maximum speed that space-time allows. Any massless signal would travel at that speed. Light happens to be one such signal. Once this is understood, the idea of reaching the speed of light becomes meaningless for massive objects. As an object accelerates, it does not just move faster through space, it also moves differently through time. More and more of its motion goes into the time direction being converted into space direction. At low speeds, this effect is negligible. At high speeds, it becomes dominant. As velocity increases, energy requirements grow rapidly, not linearly but exponentially. Near the speed of light, adding even a tiny amount of speed requires an enormous amount of energy. At the limit, the required energy becomes infinite. This is not because engines are inefficient, it is because the geometry of space-time does not allow massive objects to reach the speed where time would completely stop for them relative to everything else. Massive objects must experience time. If an object with mass were to reach the speed of light, time would cease to pass for it entirely. That state is incompatible with having mass. This is why photons, which have no mass, travel at the speed of light. They do not experience time in the same way. For them, emission and absorption are not separated by duration. Mass and the speed of light are mutually exclusive properties. This leads to a deeper understanding of the limit. The speed of light is not just the speed of light. It is the speed at which space-time converts time into space. It is the maximum rate at which information can propagate without breaking causality. If something could travel faster than light, it would not merely arrive sooner. In some reference frames, it would arrive before it was sent. This is not a technicality, it is unavoidable. Relativity shows that faster than light travel would allow closed loops in time, where effects precede causes. This would make the concept of cause meaningless. The universe avoids this by making faster than light motion impossible. This does not require enforcement. It falls out naturally from the structure of space-time. The equations simply do not allow trajectories that cross outside the light cone for objects with mass. This is why the speed limit is absolute. It is not a technological ceiling. It is not a property of light bulbs or lasers. It is not something that could be bypassed with better engineering. It is a statement about what kinds of connections between events are possible. Even hypothetical particles that always move faster than light, called tachyons, lead to contradictions when examined carefully. They destabilize the vacuum. They undermine causality. They introduce inconsistencies that make the theory unusable. Physics does not reject them because they are strange. It rejects them because they break the logical structure of reality. The speed of light is therefore better understood as a conversion factor between space and time. It tells us how many units of space correspond to one unit of time. In natural units, physicists often set the speed of light equal to 1. This is not a trick. It reflects the idea that space and time are two aspects of the same thing. Once you see it this way, the limit stops being mysterious. The universe does not cap speed. It finds a geometry in which certain paths are allowed and others are not. Massless things follow the fastest possible paths through space-time. Massive things follow slower ones. No amount of force can change which kind of path an object is allowed to follow. This also explains why the speed of light appears in so many unrelated equations. It shows up in electromagnetism, relativity, quantum field theory, and cosmology. Because it is not about light at all. It is about the structure of space-time. It sets the scale at which space and time mix. It defines the causal structure of the universe. It limits how fast information can travel. It protects the consistency of cause and effect. When people ask why the speed of light is a limit, they often imagine an obstacle, something blocking faster motion. There is no obstacle. There is only geometry. Trying to exceed the speed of light is like trying to move north from the North Pole. The instruction itself stops making sense beyond a certain point. The limit is not something you hit, it is something you cannot approach in the way you think. As you accelerate, space-time responds by reshaping your experience of distance and duration. The closer you get to the limit, the more extreme these distortions become. Not to stop you, but because that is how space-time works. The speed of light is the boundary between possible and impossible connections. It is the line that preserves order in a universe that allows motion. Without it, the universe would not merely look different, it would not function, and that is why the speed of light is not just a limit, it is a requirement. If the speed of light were merely a fast speed, physics could have chosen a different one, faster, slower, adjustable. But the fact that it appears everywhere, invariant and unavoidable, points to something deeper. The limit is woven into the logic of how the universe connects events. To see this, it helps to step away from objects and motion entirely and focus on information. Every physical interaction is, at its core, an exchange of information. A force tells an object how to move, a signal tells a system what has happened elsewhere. Even light itself is not important because it is luminous, but because it carries information. The speed of light is the maximum speed at which information can propagate. This immediately reframes the question. The universe is not limiting speed for the sake of motion. It is limiting the rate at which information can influence other parts of reality. Why would such a limit be necessary? Because without it, the idea of a consistent universe collapses. Imagine a universe where information could travel infinitely fast. In such a universe, every event would be instantly connected to every other event. There would be no local causality, no separation, no delay between cause and effect. At first, this might sound convenient, but it destroys predictability. Physics relies on the idea that causes precede effects and that influences propagate through space over time. If information were instantaneous, the notion of before and after would lose physical meaning. More importantly, relativity shows that instantaneous is not absolute. In a universe with no maximum signal speed, different observers would disagree on the order of events in a way that leads to contradictions. One observer could see an effect occur before its cause, while another sees the opposite. The universe avoids this by enforcing a strict upper bound on information transfer. The speed of light is that bound. It ensures that all observers, regardless of how they move, can agree on which events can influence which other events. They may disagree on timing, they may disagree on distance, but they will never disagree on causality. This is crucial. Relativity allows time to stretch and shrink, space to contract and expand, but it does not allow causal order to break. The speed of light is the mechanism that protects that order. This also explains why the limit is invariant. If the maximum speed depended on the observer, causality would still fail. One observer could send information faster than another could receive it consistently. The structure would collapse. So the universe chooses a different solution. Instead of letting speeds add normally, it lets space and time adjust. When you move faster, clocks slow down, lengths contract. These changes are not corrections. They are the fundamental response of space-time to motion. They exist to keep the causal structure intact. From this perspective, the speed of light is not something objects approach. It is something space-time enforces. This enforcement does not feel like a force because it is not a force. It is a geometric constraint, similar to how angles in a triangle must add up to a certain value in a given geometry. You do not push against geometry, you exist within it. Another way to see this is to consider that the speed of light links space and time numerically. It tells us how much space is equivalent to how much time. In everyday units, this looks like a very large number. In natural units, physicists often set it equal to 1 because it simplifies the equations and reflects reality more honestly. Space and time are not separate substances, they are two axes of a single structure. The speed of light is the conversion factor between them. This means that the limit is not about motion through space alone, it is about how motion through space-time is distributed between space and time. Every object moves through space-time at the same total speed. Massive objects move mostly through time and only a little through space. Massless objects move entirely through space and not at all through time. As an object accelerates, it does not increase its total space-time motion. It redistributes it. More space, less time at the speed of light. There is no time left to give. This is why further acceleration becomes impossible. It would require negative time flow, which has no physical meaning. This also clarifies a common misunderstanding, that light chooses to move at the speed of light. It does not. Light has no rest frame. It cannot slow down because slowing down would require it to experience time. But massless particles do not experience time in the same way massive objects do. Light moves at the maximum speed because that is the only speed available to something without mass. It is not racing. It is following the only path space-time allows it to follow. Once this is understood, the question, why can't we go faster, becomes clearer. Going faster than light would require following a space-time path that lies outside the light cone. Such paths are not forbidden by a rule. They simply do not exist for objects with mass. The equations do not contain them. Even in speculative physics, where space-time itself might be warped or manipulated, the local rule remains intact. Information cannot locally outrun light. Warping space-time might allow effective faster-than-light travel in a global sense, but locally, nothing ever exceeds the limit. Causality remains intact because the light cone structure is preserved. This reinforces the idea that the limit is not about speed in the everyday sense. It is about the connectivity of space-time. The universe is built like a network where connections have a maximum transmission rate. That rate is fixed not by engineering constraints, but by the structure of the network itself. Change the rate, and the network stops being coherent. This is why the speed of light also appears in equations that have nothing to do with light. It appears in electromagnetism because electromagnetic fields propagate information. It appears in gravity because changes in space-time curvature propagate information. It appears in quantum field theory because particle interactions respect causality. The same limit governs all of them because they all operate within the same space-time. There is only one causal structure. It is also worth noting that the speed of light is not tied to the properties of the vacuum in a trivial way. It is not like the speed of sound, which depends on the medium. Light travels at the same speed regardless of the motion of the source or observer, because the vacuum is not a medium in the classical sense. It is the background structure itself. You cannot move relative to space-time in a way that changes its rules. This is why experiments designed to detect motion relative to a light medium all failed. There is no preferred frame. The speed limit is the same in all frames because it defines the frames. This brings us to a subtle but important point. The speed of light is not the fastest thing in the universe. It is the fastest relationship. It defines how events relate to one another. Nothing can influence anything else faster than that relationship allows. In this sense, the limit is not restrictive. It is generative. It allows the universe to have local structure, delayed effects, memory, and history. Without it, everything would blur together into a single undefined state. A universe without a speed limit would not be more free, it would be less structured. It would not allow stable processes, predictable outcomes, or consistent laws. The speed of light is therefore not an obstacle to progress or exploration. It is the reason progress and exploration are possible at all. It is what allows the universe to have a past that differs from its future. It is what allows cause to precede effect. It is what allows complexity to emerge without contradiction. When seen this way, the question shifts again. The real question is not, why is the speed of light a limit? The real question is, how could a universe function without one? So far, every attempt to imagine such a universe collapses into inconsistency. Our universe chose a different path. It embedded the limit into the fabric of reality itself. not as a barrier, but as a foundation. When the speed of light is understood as a structural feature of space-time rather than a property of light, a deeper question naturally follows. Could the universe have been built differently? In principle, the equations of physics allow us to imagine universes with different constants, a higher speed limit, a lower one, or none at all. But imagining these possibilities quickly reveals why the limit is not arbitrary, and why it cannot simply be adjusted without breaking something fundamental. The speed of light sets the scale at which space and time are linked. It determines how much time must pass for a given amount of spatial separation to become causally connected. If that scale were different, the structure of causality would be different as well. Consider a universe where the maximum speed were much higher. In such a universe, events separated by large distances could influence each other very quickly. The delay between cause and effect would shrink. Local regions of space would become tightly coupled to distant regions. The universe would behave more like a single globally connected system rather than a collection of local interactions. At first glance, this might seem like an improvement. Faster communication, faster processes, more rapid evolution, but this comes at a cost. Locality would weaken. Locality is the principle that events are primarily influenced by their immediate surroundings. It is what allows complex systems to form without being overwhelmed by distant influences. It is what allows stars, planets, and organisms to behave coherently. If information could propagate almost instantly across vast distances, local systems would struggle to maintain independence. Small disturbances could ripple across the universe before they could be damped or absorbed. Stability would be harder to achieve. Now consider the opposite case, a universe with a much lower speed limit. In this universe, causal influence would be extremely slow. Regions of space would be effectively isolated from each other. Even nearby events would take long periods to interact. The universe would fragment into disconnected domains. Structure formation would be severely limited. Gravity, for example, would struggle to assemble matter efficiently. Changes in gravitational fields propagate at the speed of light. Lower that speed, and gravity becomes sluggish. Large structures would take far longer to form, if they formed at all. Stars might never ignite. Galaxies might never assemble. This already suggests something important. The speed of light is not just a constraint, it is a tuning parameter that balances connectivity and isolation. It is fast enough to allow structure to form, but slow enough to preserve locality. But there is a deeper issue that arises when we consider removing the limit entirely. A universe with no maximum speed would allow instantaneous interactions. This would erase the distinction between here and there. Every event would be immediately connected to every other event. In such a universe, the concept of space-time itself begins to unravel. Space-time relies on the idea that events are separated by intervals that limit interaction. Without those limits, space-time becomes a single, undifferentiated block. There is no meaningful notion of distance or duration. More importantly, causality collapses. In relativity, the ordering of events is constrained by the speed of light. Some events are causally connected, others are not. This structure ensures that causes precede effects in all reference frames. Remove the limit, and that structure disappears. Different observers would disagree not just about timing, but about whether events are causes or effects at all. Logical contradictions would arise. Paradoxes would become unavoidable. This is not a philosophical inconvenience, it is a mathematical breakdown. The equations that describe physical processes assume a well-defined causal order. Remove that order and prediction becomes impossible. This is why faster-than-light signals are not just forbidden in practice, but incompatible with the structure of modern physics. They would not simply travel faster, they would travel outside the causal framework that gives meaning to physical law. This is also why attempts to construct theories with controllable faster-than-light communication consistently fail or require exotic assumptions that undermine consistency elsewhere. The universe does not tolerate violations of causality. This tolerance is not enforced by decree, It emerges naturally from the geometry of space-time. The speed of light defines the slope of light cones, which in turn define what events can influence each other. These cones are not optional features. They are built into the metric that defines distances and durations. Change the metric and you change the universe. This brings us to an even deeper realization. The speed of light is not the speed in the same sense as the speed of a car or a particle. It is a structural constant. It defines the geometry of space-time. Just as the curvature of space in general relativity determines how objects move under gravity, the speed of light determines how events are connected across space-time. It is part of the scaffolding of reality. This scaffolding is not something that can be bypassed. It is what makes motion, interaction, and change possible in the first place. Even phenomena that seem to challenge the speed limit, such as quantum entanglement, do not violate it. Entangled particles exhibit correlations that appear instant, but no usable information is transmitted faster than light. The correlations do not allow control, they do not allow signaling. They do not allow causality to be violated. This distinction is crucial. The universe permits correlations without communication, but it does not permit influence without delay. Once again, causality is protected. This protection is not an added rule. It is the outcome of how quantum theory and relativity fit together. The speed of light stands at the intersection of these theories because both require a consistent causal structure. In quantum field theory, fields are defined at every point in spacetime. Their interactions must respect the light cone structure. Operators at space-like separated points must commute, ensuring that measurements cannot influence each other faster than light. If this condition were violated, the theory would lose predictability. In general relativity, changes in space-time curvature propagate at the speed of light. Gravitational waves do not travel faster. This ensures that gravity respects the same causal limits as all other interactions. There is no special exception. This universality reinforces the idea that the speed of light is not about light at all. It is about how reality updates itself. Information about changes does not propagate instantaneously. It propagates at a fixed rate determined by space-time geometry. This rate is the same for all interactions because they all inhabit the same space-time. The limit also ensures that the universe can be decomposed into local laws. Local laws are what make physics manageable. They allow us to write equations that describe what happens in a small region without needing to know the state of the entire universe at once. Without a speed limit, locality would vanish. Laws would become global. Every calculation would require complete knowledge of everything else. Physics would be impossible. This reveals a final, often overlooked reason the limit exists. It is what allows complexity. Complex systems require partial isolation. They require the ability to respond to nearby conditions without being instantly overwhelmed by distant ones. They require delayed feedback. The speed of light provides that delay. It gives the universe time to react. It gives systems time to evolve. It gives cause and effect room to exist as separate concepts. Without it, the universe would be too tightly coupled to support structure. With it, the universe finds a balance between connection and separation. This balance is not guaranteed in all conceivable universes. It is a property of this one, and it may be one of the reasons this universe is capable of sustaining complexity at all. Seen this way, the speed of light is not an inconvenience imposed on motion. It is the condition that makes motion meaningful. It is the boundary that allows events to be ordered, interactions to be local, and structures to persist. The limit does not block progress. It defines the arena in which progress can occur, and once that arena is understood, the question of why shifts again. The speed of light is a limit because the universe is built in such a way that it must be one, not because light demands it, but because causality, consistency, and structure do. To understand the speed of light as a limit is to understand that the universe prioritizes consistency over freedom. Not freedom of motion, but freedom of contradiction. The universe allows many things, but it does not allow itself to become logically incoherent. This becomes clearest when we examine what would happen if the limit could be crossed even slightly. Imagine a signal that travels faster than light. Not infinitely fast, just a little faster. At first, nothing seems wrong. The signal arrives sooner than expected. Information moves more efficiently, but relativity immediately reveals a deeper problem. Because time is not absolute, different observers slice space-time into now moments differently. When something moves faster than light, there will always exist a reference frame in which the order of events is reversed. The signal is received before it is sent. This is not a paradox that appears only under exotic conditions. It arises inevitably from the mathematics of space-time. Faster than light motion does not merely shorten travel time. It breaks the invariant structure that keeps cause before effect. Once that structure is broken, it cannot be partially repaired. If one faster than light signal is allowed, then closed loops in time become possible. A message can be sent into the past. That message can prevent itself from being sent. The universe becomes logically inconsistent. Physics does not tolerate such inconsistency, not because it is aesthetically displeasing, but because inconsistent systems cannot be predicted. They cannot be modeled. They cannot sustain stable laws. A universe where causes do not reliably precede effects cannot support physics as we understand it. This is why the speed of light is not just a limit on motion, it is a limit on influence. It defines the boundary beyond which influence loses meaning. The universe does not forbid faster than light motion to protect itself from danger. It forbids it because faster than light motion cannot be meaningfully defined within a consistent space-time. There is no place for it to exist. This also clarifies why the limit applies to everything, not just matter or light. It applies to gravity, electromagnetism, and even hypothetical interactions we have not yet discovered. Any interaction that carries information must respect the same causal structure, or it will destabilize the whole framework. There is no special exemption. Even gravity, which once seemed instantaneous, was revealed to propagate at the speed of light. Changes in gravitational fields move no faster than changes in electromagnetic fields. Gravitational waves confirm this directly. The universe enforces a single speed limit because it enforces a single causal structure. This causal structure is built into the metric of space-time itself. The metric tells space-time how to measure distance and duration. It also tells it which paths are time-like, which are light-like, and which are space-like. Only time-like and light-like paths are allowed for physical influence. Space-like paths, those that would require faster than light motion, exist mathematically, but they cannot be traversed by anything that carries information. They are geometrically real but physically inaccessible. This distinction is subtle and important. The universe does not remove space-like paths from mathematics, it removes them from physics. This is why diagrams of space-time include regions that are elsewhere, places that exist but cannot be reached or influenced. They are not forbidden regions, they are simply outside the reach of causality. The speed of light defines that reach. This also explains why acceleration cannot push an object past the limit. Acceleration changes an object's path through space-time, but it does not change which kinds of paths are available. A massive object always follows a time-like path. No amount of acceleration can convert that path into a light-like or space-like one. Trying to do so would require infinite energy because it would require changing the object's fundamental relationship with time. Massive objects move through time, light does not. That distinction is absolute. This brings us to a deeper layer of the question: why does mass enforce this behavior? Mass is not just resistance to acceleration. In relativity, mass is a measure of how an object occupies space-time. It anchors the object to time. It ensures that the object experiences duration. To reach the speed of light would be to eliminate time from the object's experience entirely. That state is incompatible with having mass. So the limit is not imposed externally, it is encoded in what mass is. This is why the speed of light is not something massive objects approach in a simple sense. As they accelerate, space-time reshapes their experience so that further acceleration yields diminishing returns in speed. Energy goes into increasing momentum and relativistic mass energy, not into reaching the limit. This is not inefficiency, it is geometry. The universe does not allow an object with mass to stop moving through time. This would collapse the distinction between object and event. Photons are events in motion. Massive objects are processes extended in time. They belong to different categories of space-time trajectories. This also clarifies why the speed of light appears in formulas relating mass and energy. The famous equation linking mass and energy is not about conversion alone. It is about the equivalence of time-like and space-like components of motion. The speed of light connects them. It tells us how much energy is associated with mass, because it tells us how mass moves through time. Once again, the limit is not about light, it is about time. Specifically, it is about preserving the distinction between past, present, and future. Without the limit, that distinction collapses. Now consider a final thought experiment. Suppose the speed of light were not constant, but varied depending on conditions or observers. Suppose different parts of the universe had different speed limits. Causality would fracture. Events that are causally connected in one region would not be in another. Signals could outrun the local structure of space-time. The universe would lose its global coherence. This is why the speed of light must be the same everywhere and for everyone. It is not a property of local matter. It is a property of space-time itself. Space-time is not something embedded in the universe. It is the universe, and its geometry sets the rules. This realization also explains why the speed of light is immune to technological progress. No engine, no material, no clever trick can alter the geometry of space-time locally in a way that allows causal violation. Even hypothetical technologies that manipulate space-time, such as warp-like configurations, must still respect local light cones. They do not allow objects to locally outrun causality. They rearrange distances. The limit remains intact. The universe permits shortcuts through geometry, but not violations of influence. This is a crucial distinction. It means that the limit is not about how fast you move through space. It is about whether your motion remains causally meaningful. The speed of light is the dividing line between meaningful motion and meaningless contradiction. Below it, physics works. Above it, physics dissolves. This is why the limit is absolute. Not because the universe lacks imagination, but because it refuses inconsistency. The speed of light is the quiet rule that makes everything else possible. It is the boundary that allows time to flow forward without ambiguity. It is the condition that allows events to be ordered, histories to exist, and laws to remain stable. Without it, the universe would not merely be strange. It would be unusable. And so the speed of light stands not as a barrier to be overcome, but as the foundation on which reality is built. It is not the end of possibility, it is the reason possibility exists at all. The speed of light also defines what it means for events to be real in a physical sense. Reality, as described by physics, is not a collection of everything that could happen, but of everything that can happen in a way that is consistent across all observers. The speed limit is what filters possibility into physical actuality. An event becomes physically meaningful only if it can, in principle, influence something else. An interaction that can never affect any other event is indistinguishable from not happening at all. The speed of light defines that boundary. It separates events that belong to the same physical universe from those that are forever disconnected. This is why causality is not just a rule imposed after the fact, it is built into the definition of what counts as an event. In space-time, two events may be separated in three fundamentally different ways. They can be time-like separated, meaning one can influence the other without exceeding the speed of light. They can be light-like separated, meaning influence travels exactly at the speed of light. Or they can be space-like separated, meaning no influence can connect them without violating the limit. Only the first two categories describe physical connections. Space-like separation is not forbidden, but it is irrelevant. Events that are space-like separated cannot be part of the same causal story. No signal can travel between them. No information can be exchanged. They coexist mathematically but not physically. The speed of light is what draws that line. This has profound implications for how the universe organizes itself. It means that reality is fundamentally local. What happens here depends on what happened nearby, not on what happened arbitrarily far away at the same time. This locality is essential for stability. Without it, every region of the universe would be instantly sensitive to every other region. Any fluctuation anywhere would be felt everywhere immediately. Systems could not maintain coherence. Structures could not persist. The speed of light prevents this by enforcing delay. Delay is not a flaw. Delay is what allows systems to respond, adapt, and stabilize. In this sense, the universe is not optimized for speed. It is optimized for coherence. This also explains why the speed of light appears as a limit even in situations where nothing is actually moving at that speed. It appears in equations describing static fields, bound systems, and equilibrium states because it defines the framework within which those states exist. Even when nothing is changing, the causal structure defined by the speed of light is still there, quietly shaping what would be possible if change were to occur. Another way to see this is to consider that the speed of light limits not just how fast signals travel, but how quickly the universe can respond to itself. When a star collapses, the change in space-time curvature does not propagate instantly. Gravitational information travels outward at the speed of light. Distant regions learn about the collapse only after a delay. This delay is not optional. It is part of what it means for the collapse to be a physical event rather than a global update. If the universe updated instantaneously, there would be no distinction between local and global phenomena. Everything would be global. Physics would lose its layered structure. The speed of light preserves layers. It allows local events to remain local. It allows global structure to emerge gradually rather than instantaneously. This layered structure is what makes the universe navigable, both conceptually and physically. Now consider another common misconception, that the speed of light is a limit because light has massless particles that just happen to move fast. This reverses cause and effect. Light moves at the maximum speed because it is massless. It is not massless because it moves fast. Massless particles follow paths that lie exactly on the light cone. They do not have the option of moving slower because slowing down would require them to experience time in a way that massless particles cannot. This again shows that the speed of light is not an attribute of light, but of space-time. It is the boundary between time-like and light-like trajectories. Everything with mass must remain inside the light cone. Everything without mass lives on its surface. Nothing physical can cross outside it. This boundary is not enforced dynamically, it is enforced geometrically. Trying to exceed the speed of light is not like trying to jump higher than you can. It is like trying to draw a triangle with angles that do not add up to what geometry allows. The attempt fails because the structure does not permit it. This also clarifies why energy requirements diverge near the limit. Energy is not just fuel for motion, it is a measure of how strongly an object is embedded in space-time. As an object accelerates, it does not simply gain kinetic energy, it changes its relationship with time. It becomes more tilted towards space and space-time diagrams. The closer it gets to the light cone, the more energy is required to tilt it further. At the limit, the tilt would require infinite energy because it would require eliminating time-like separation entirely. Infinite energy is not a practical problem. It is a signal that the path is not allowed. Physics often communicates impossibility through divergence. When quantities blow up, it usually means that the assumptions leading to the calculation are being pushed beyond their domain of validity. In this case, the divergence tells us that time-like paths cannot become light-like for massive objects. The speed limit is therefore not a barrier to overcome with better engines. It is a boundary between categories of existence. This also explains why discussions of faster than light travel often drift into speculation about exotic matter, negative energy, or space-time manipulation. These ideas attempt to change the geometry rather than the motion. But even here, the limit reasserts itself. Local physics still respects the light cone. Any observer travelling through space-time locally will still find that signals do not outrun light. What changes is the global arrangement of space-time, not the local rule. This distinction matters because it shows that the universe is flexible in some ways and rigid in others. It allows curvature, it allows expansion, it allows distortion, but it does not allow causal violation. The speed of light is the line the universe does not cross. This rigidity is not arbitrary, it is what allows the universe to be described by laws at all. Laws require that the same causes produce the same effects. That requires a stable causal structure. If faster than light influences were allowed, the outcome of an event could depend on events that, in some frames, had not yet happened. Predictability would vanish. Physics would lose its footing. This is why the speed of light also appears in the foundations of quantum theory. Even there, where probability and uncertainty dominate, causality is preserved. Measurements cannot influence outcomes outside the light cone. Quantum correlations do not allow control. The universe permits non-local correlations but forbids non-local influence. Again, the limit holds. All of this leads to a final, subtle insight. The speed of light is not a constraint imposed on an otherwise free universe. It is the rule that makes freedom meaningful. Without it, motion would not be ordered. Information would not be local. History would not be consistent. Structure would not be stable. The universe would not be navigable by reason. The limit is not a wall. It is a frame. It defines what it means for one thing to affect another. It defines what it means for time to flow. It defines what it means for space to separate. And because of that, it defines what it means for the universe to exist as a coherent whole. The speed of light is a limit not because the universe is restrictive, but because it is careful. It allows everything that can happen without contradiction, and it disallows everything that would unravel the very idea of happening at all. This is not a limitation of physics, it is its foundation. The speed of light also determines how reality maintains continuity. Continuity is not just about motion appearing smooth, it is about the universe updating itself in a coherent way, step by step, without contradictions or jumps that erase cause and effect. Every physical process is an update. A force updates velocity, a signal updates information, a measurement updates a state. The speed of light sets the maximum rate at which these updates can propagate. Without such a limit, the universe would not update locally. It would update globally, all at once. And a universe that updates globally cannot maintain internal consistency because local conditions would have no time to resolve before being overwritten by distant changes. The speed limit ensures that updates propagate outward in expanding fronts, not instantaneously across everything. This is why light cones are so central to modern physics. They are not just diagrams, they are the bookkeeping system of reality. They tell space-time how to update itself without breaking. Inside a light cone, influence is allowed. Outside it, influence is undefined. This is not about speed alone. It is about order. Order is what allows physical law to exist. If the universe allowed faster than light updates, order would fragment. Different observers would calculate different sequences of events with no way to reconcile them. Physical law would become observer-dependent in a destructive way. Relativity allows observer dependence only where it does not break causality. Time can dilate, lengths can contract, simultaneity can shift, but causality does not yield. The speed of light is the line that causality refuses to cross. This is why the universe tolerates extreme distortions of space and time, but not violations of the limit. Black holes warp space-time dramatically. Expansion stretches distances faster than light globally. Quantum fluctuations create non-intuitive correlations, yet none of these allow information to outrun the light cone locally. The rule holds everywhere. This universality suggests that the speed limit is not a feature layered on top of physics, but something physics is built around. Consider what it means to measure anything. A measurement is an interaction. An instrument must exchange information with the system being measured. That exchange cannot happen instantaneously. It takes time for signals to propagate. The speed of light sets the ultimate resolution of measurement across space. Without it, the idea of observation would collapse. Measurements could affect distant systems instantly, leading to contradictions where outcomes depend on choices made elsewhere at the same time. The universe prevents this by enforcing delay. Delay allows independence. Independence allows definition. This is why the speed of light also underlies the concept of locality in quantum field theory. Fields are defined at points in space-time, but their interactions respect causal separation. Operators commute at space-like separation precisely because no influence can pass between them faster than light. This is not a technical detail. It is what keeps quantum theory from devolving into chaos. The speed limit is doing quiet, constant work in the background, ensuring that interactions remain well-ordered even when probabilities are involved. Another way to see this is to recognize that the speed of light limits not just how fast signals travel, but how fast the universe can rearrange itself. Large-scale changes take time to propagate. When a star explodes, its effects spread outward. When space-time ripples, gravitational waves carry the news. Nothing happens everywhere at once. This gradual propagation is what allows the universe to have a notion of elsewhere that is distinct from here. Without that distinction, there would be no meaningful spatial separation. Space would lose its identity. The speed of light preserves space by limiting interaction. It preserves time by limiting update rate. Together, these limits preserve space-time as a coherent structure. This coherence is fragile. It relies on the limit being absolute. Even rare violations would be catastrophic, not in the sense of explosions, but in the sense of logical collapse. If faster than light signals were possible, even occasionally, they could be chained together to produce causal loops. Once loops exist, the concept of cause loses meaning. Physics does not allow partial causality. Either causality holds everywhere, or it does not hold at all. The speed of light ensures it holds everywhere. This also sheds light on why the universe allows no preferred frame of reference. If one frame were special, signals could be faster in some frames than others. Causality would fracture. Instead, all frames agree on the speed limit, even if they disagree on distances and times. The universe sacrifices absolute time to preserve absolute causality. This is a deep trade. It means that clocks cannot be universal. It means simultaneity is relative. It means motion reshapes time itself. But it keeps cause and effect intact. The speed of light is the price of consistency. This trade-off is not negotiable. You cannot have both absolute time and a universal speed limit. The universe chooses the limit, and that choice has consequences. It means that as objects accelerate, their internal clocks slow relative to others. It means that energy and momentum become intertwined in ways that defy classical intuition. But these consequences are not arbitrary side effects. They are the necessary adjustments space-time makes to maintain the limit. In this sense, relativity is not a strange theory layered on top of classical physics. It is classical physics corrected to respect the limit. Without the limit, classical physics would remain simpler, but it would also be wrong. The universe does not value simplicity over correctness. It values consistency. This consistency extends even into speculative regimes. Even when physicists explore theories beyond known physics, such as quantum gravity or higher dimensions, the speed of light remains a guiding constraint. Any candidate theory that violates causal structure is viewed with suspicion, not because it is unfamiliar, but because it threatens coherence. The limit is the spine of theoretical physics. It holds the body together, This also explains why attempts to explain the speed of light as an emergent phenomenon are so difficult. Emergence usually implies that a property arises from deeper rules, but the speed of light appears at the deepest levels we currently understand. It is already present in the geometry of space-time. If it emerges, it must emerge from something even more fundamental than space-time itself. And whatever that deeper structure is, it must still preserve causality. This suggests that the speed limit is not an accident of our universe, but a necessary feature of any universe that supports coherent physics. A universe without such a limit would not just behave differently. It would not allow stable laws. It would not allow memory. It would not allow identity. The speed of light ensures that the universe can have a past that influences the present without being overwritten by it. It allows history to accumulate. It allows consequences to unfold. It allows time to mean something. This brings us to an often overlooked point. The speed of light is not a limit on what exists. It is a limit on what can matter. Events that cannot influence anything else do not participate in reality in a physical sense. They may exist mathematically, but they do not contribute to the unfolding of the universe. The speed of light defines the boundary of participation. To exist physically is to be able to influence. To influence is to send information. To send information is to respect the limit. Everything meaningful in physics sits within this structure. This is why the limit does not feel like a restriction when you look closely. It feels like an enabling condition. It allows the universe to have regions, histories, and futures. It allows complexity to arise without contradiction. It allows physics to function as a descriptive system rather than a collection of exceptions. The speed of light is the quiet rule that allows everything else to speak. Without it, the universe would not be faster. It would be incoherent, and coherence, not speed, is what makes reality possible. The speed of light also shapes how the universe defines separation. Separation is not merely distance. It is the ability for one region of reality to exist without being immediately overwritten by another. Without separation, there can be no individuality of systems, no boundaries, no persistence. The speed limit is what gives separation meaning. Two objects can be far apart in space, but if influence could pass between them instantly, that distance would be meaningless. Space would be a coordinate system with no physical consequence. What makes space real is not its size, but the delay it imposes. Distance matters because it takes time to cross. The speed of light is what turns geometry into experience. This is why space-time diagrams are not just abstract tools. They show that separation is defined by causality, not by meters or seconds. Two events may be separated by vast distances, but if no signal can ever connect them, they are effectively independent realities within the same mathematical universe. The speed limit draws invisible boundaries around every event. Inside those boundaries, influence is possible. Outside them, it is not. These boundaries are not walls, they are horizons of relevance. This idea becomes especially important when considering the large-scale structure of the universe. As the universe expands, regions move beyond each other's causal reach, not because they are forbidden, but because the speed of light limits how fast influence can travel. Cosmic expansion stretches space itself. Some regions recede from us faster than light, not because they are moving through space at that speed, but because space between us and them is expanding. Even here the limit holds locally. No signal sent now will ever reach those regions. They are beyond the horizon of influence. This is not a violation of the speed limit. It is a consequence of it. The speed of light determines not just how fast signals move, but which parts of the universe can ever be connected. It defines the observable universe, the region of space-time that can have any causal relationship with us at all. Beyond that region, there may be galaxies, structures, even entire cosmic histories, but they are causally disconnected. They do not participate in our physical reality in any meaningful way. Again, the limit defines relevance. This also shows that the speed of light is not about preventing motion. It is about shaping the universe into domains of influence. Without it, the universe would collapse into a single undifferentiated whole. With it, the universe becomes partitioned into regions that evolve semi-independently. This partitioning is essential for complexity. Complex systems require insulation. They require the ability to respond to local conditions without being instantly overwhelmed by distant ones. The speed of light provides that insulation. It allows stars to form without instantly responding to every other star. It allows galaxies to evolve without being synchronized with every other galaxy. It allows chemistry, biology, and information processing to occur without global interference. The universe is not just slow enough to allow complexity, it is slow enough in the right way. The speed of light balances connectivity and independence. This balance also explains why the limit appears so rigid. If it were even slightly flexible, if signals could exceed it under special circumstances, the balance would be lost. Even rare faster-than-light influences could collapse separation. Once any path outside the light cone is allowed, the concept of inside and outside loses meaning. Influence could be chained across frames to reach anywhere, anytime. Separation would dissolve. The universe does not allow this. Instead, it enforces the limit everywhere, without exception. This enforcement does not require supervision. It is built into the geometry of space-time. Every event automatically carries its own boundary of influence. Nothing crosses it. This is also why the speed of light is independent of the source. If it depended on the motion of the source, separation would become ambiguous. Some observers would see boundaries that others do not. The universe would lose a shared structure. Instead, the limit is the same for all observers. Everyone agrees on what can influence what. This shared agreement is what allows objective physics. Without it, reality would fragment into incompatible perspectives. The speed of light is the glue that keeps perspectives aligned. It is also the reason why the universe is not deterministic in a trivial sense. Determinism requires that future states follow from present states, but the speed limit ensures that this dependence is local and delayed. The future of a region depends on what lies within its past light cone, not on the entire universe. This introduces contingency. It allows outcomes to differ based on local conditions. Without the limit, determinism would be global. Everything would depend on everything else instantly. The universe would be rigid and fragile. With the limit, determinism is local and robust. This also clarifies why randomness and uncertainty can coexist with physical law. Random events are constrained to propagate their influence at finite speed. They do not destabilize the entire universe. The speed of light acts as a firewall against runaway influence. This firewall is not designed. It emerges. It is the natural consequence of a space-time structure that values coherence over immediacy. Another way to understand this is to consider that the universe is constantly negotiating between unity and plurality. It must be unified enough to be governed by laws, but plural enough to contain many distinct systems. The speed of light mediates that negotiation. It allows unity through shared causal structure. It allows plurality through separation. This dual role is subtle but profound. The limit is not merely a cap on speed. It is the mechanism by which the universe avoids becoming either completely fragmented or completely homogenized. Too much separation and nothing interacts. Too little separation and nothing persists. The speed of light sets the balance point. This balance also explains why the limit appears so deeply in the mathematics of physics. It is not a parameter that can be tuned without cascading consequences. Change it and you change everything. You change the size of light cones. You change the structure of causality. You change the meaning of distance and duration. You change what it means for systems to exist independently. The universe we observe sits at a particular balance where complexity is possible. This is not necessarily the only balance, but it is one that allows stable structures, long-lived processes, and layered organization. The speed of light is central to that balance. It is also worth noting that the limit is not symmetrical in all directions of time. It allows influence to propagate forward but not backward. This asymmetry is tied to entropy in the arrow of time. The speed of light ensures that information flows from past to future, not the other way around. Without it, the arrow of time would lose physical meaning. This is yet another way the limit preserves order. It protects not just causality but temporality. This protection does not prevent exotic phenomena. Time dilation, length contraction, and relativistic effects all occur freely, but they occur in a way that preserves the fundamental ordering of events. The universe is flexible but not self-contradictory. The speed of light is the rule that enforces that distinction. As this picture comes together, the original question transforms once again. The speed of light is not a limit because the universe lacks faster things. It is a limit because the universe needs separation to exist at all. It needs distance to matter. It needs delay to allow response. It needs boundaries to allow identity. The speed of light is how those needs are satisfied. It is not a ceiling placed on motion. It is the definition of meaningful separation. Without it, everything would be everywhere at once, and nothing would be anything in particular. With it, the universe becomes a tapestry of connected but distinct regions, evolving over time without collapsing into contradiction. The speed of light does not restrict reality, it gives reality shape. And that shape is what allows the universe to be something rather than nothing, coherent rather than confused, structured rather than dissolved. The limit is not what stops us, it is what holds everything together. The speed of light also determines how the universe defines knowledge. Knowledge, in a physical sense, is not abstract. It is information that has been acquired, stored, and can influence future outcomes. For information to exist physically, it must be able to travel, interact, and persist. The speed of light sets the ultimate boundary on all three. Every act of knowing is an act of connection. A detector receives a signal. A system responds to a force. A memory records a change. Each of these requires information to move from one place to another. Without a finite speed limit, information would not have a history. It would simply be everywhere at once. Knowledge would lose its structure, and with it, its meaning. The speed of light ensures that information has a trajectory. It must travel. It must arrive. It must be received. This gives information a temporal order. That order is what makes learning, memory, and causation possible. In a universe without a speed limit, information would not accumulate. There would be no sequence of discovery, no gradual unfolding of structure. Everything that could be known would be known instantly, everywhere, all the time. This may sound like perfect knowledge. It is not. It is the collapse of knowledge into irrelevance. Knowledge only matters when it arrives after ignorance. It only matters when it changes something. The speed of light provides the delay that makes that change meaningful. This also explains why the universe cannot allow faster than light communication even if it might seem useful. Communication is not just transmission, it is controlled influence. Faster than light communication would allow effects to precede causes, making knowledge self-contradictory. A message received before it is sent is not information, it is a paradox. The universe avoids paradox by making such messages impossible. This constraint applies not only to signals but to correlations that could be used to send signals. This is why quantum entanglement, despite its strange behavior, cannot be used for faster than light communication. Entanglement creates correlations, but correlations alone do not carry controllable information. No choice made in one location can force a specific outcome in another. Once again, the speed of light draws the line. It allows correlation. It forbids influence without delay. This distinction is subtle but crucial. It allows the universe to be deeply interconnected at a fundamental level without sacrificing causal order. The speed of light also shapes how information decays. Information is not immortal. It can be lost, scrambled, or diluted. The speed limit determines how quickly information can spread. and therefore how quickly it can be irreversibly mixed into the environment. This is closely tied to entropy. Entropy increases because information about the exact microstate of a system becomes inaccessible. That inaccessibility depends on how fast disturbances propagate and mix. The speed of light sets the ultimate pace of that mixing across space. Without a speed limit, entropy would behave very differently. Information would be smeared instantly across the universe. Local order would be impossible to maintain. Systems would lose their identity immediately. The speed of light protects local order by slowing down the spread of information. This protection is what allows complex systems to exist for long periods. Stars can burn steadily, planets can remain stable. Biological systems can process information internally without being overwhelmed by the environment. The universe is not just slow enough for complexity, it is slow enough in exactly the way complexity requires. This also reveals why the speed of light is deeply connected to the arrow of time. The arrow of time is defined by the direction in which information is lost and entropy increases. That process depends on finite propagation speeds. If information could propagate infinitely fast, the arrow of time would blur. Past and future would become harder to distinguish physically. The universe would lose its temporal asymmetry. The speed of light preserves that asymmetry by enforcing a causal direction. Information moves forward in time, spreading outward at a finite rate. This outward spreading defines the boundary between what can be known now and what cannot yet be known. The future is unknowable not because it is hidden, but because information from it has not yet arrived. The speed of light makes the future real by delaying it. This delay is not a defect. It is what allows anticipation, adaptation, and change. Another way to see this is to recognize that the speed of light defines horizons of knowledge. There are regions of the universe whose light has not yet reached us. There are events that have happened but are not yet part of our reality. They exist, but we cannot know them yet. This is not a limitation of our instruments. It is a property of space-time. The universe does not reveal itself all at once. It reveals itself gradually. That gradual revelation is governed by the speed of light. Without it, the universe would either be fully revealed instantly or not revealed at all in any structured way. Neither case allows meaningful knowledge. The speed limit creates a layered reality where knowledge expands outward over time. Each moment adds new information as signals arrive from farther away. This layered structure is what makes cosmology possible. We can see the universe at different ages by looking at different distances. The finite speed of light turns space into time. This is not an accident. It is a consequence of the same limit that preserves causality. The speed of light connects epistemology and physics. It determines not just what happens, but what can be known. This also explains why the universe allows ignorance. Ignorance is not a failure. It is a necessary feature of a universe with finite information propagation. If everything were knowable instantly, there would be no process of discovery. Science itself would be meaningless. The speed of light creates the conditions under which knowledge can grow. It enforces a delay between question and answer. This delay is what makes explanation possible. Now consider what would happen if the limit were violated even slightly. Information could be sent backward in time. Knowledge of future outcomes could influence present decisions. Feedback loops would emerge where information invalidates itself. The universe would not just be unpredictable, it would be contradictory. Physics would not be able to define stable probabilities or outcomes. The speed of light prevents this by ensuring that information always flows forward in time within each light cone. This is why even hypothetical faster-than-light phenomena are treated with extreme caution. They are not just faster messages, they threaten the structure of knowledge itself. The universe does not allow that threat. Instead, it chooses consistency over convenience. This choice extends all the way down to the deepest levels of physical law. Even the vacuum respects the limit. Even fluctuations respect it. Even space-time itself respects it. The speed of light is not something imposed on the universe from outside. It is how the universe knows itself without collapsing into contradiction. Knowledge requires separation. Separation requires delay. Delay requires a limit. The speed of light is that limit. It ensures that reality unfolds in a way that can be tracked, remembered, and understood. It ensures that information arrives in an order that makes sense. It ensures that the universe can be known at all. Without it, there would be no observers, not because observers would be destroyed, but because observation would lose meaning. The speed of light is therefore not just a physical constant, it is a condition for intelligibility. It is what allows reality to be experienced as a sequence of states rather than a simultaneous blur. It is what allows explanation to exist. And in that sense, the speed of light is not merely a boundary on motion, it is the boundary that turns existence into something that can be understood. The speed of light also determines how the universe defines identity. Identity, in a physical sense, is not philosophical. It is the ability of a system to remain itself across time, to have a past that influences its future in a coherent way. That coherence depends entirely on limits to influence. A system is only a system if it can maintain internal relationships without being instantly overwritten by external ones. The speed of light makes that possible. Every object, from an atom to a galaxy, exists within a causal boundary. Changes inside that boundary can affect the system. Changes outside it cannot, at least not immediately. This delay is what allows systems to have internal structure and continuity. Without a speed limit, identity would dissolve. If influences could arrive instantly from everywhere, no system could maintain coherence long enough to be identifiable. Any change anywhere would immediately affect everything else. There would be no meaningful distinction between internal and external. The speed of light preserves that distinction. It allows systems to have interiors and exteriors, histories and futures, memories and consequences. This is why the limit appears not just in high-energy physics, but in the foundations of thermodynamics and information theory. A memory is a physical system that preserves information over time. For memory to exist, information must not be instantly overwritten by new input. The speed of light slows the universe down enough for memory to be possible. This applies at every scale. A star maintains equilibrium because information about changes propagates through it at finite speed. A biological organism maintains identity because signals within it travel at finite speed. A society maintains continuity because information spreads gradually rather than instantaneously. At every level, identity depends on delay. The speed of light is the ultimate delay. This also explains why the universe allows individuality at all. Individuality requires insulation, not isolation but partial separation. Systems must be connected enough to interact but separated enough to persist. The speed of light sets that balance. Too fast and individuality collapses. Too slow and interaction becomes impossible. The universe sits in between. This balance is not arbitrary, it is enforced by the geometry of space-time. Every object carries with it a causal horizon that defines what can affect it and when. These horizons are not static. They shift as objects move, but they always exist. This is why, even in extreme environments such as near black holes, the speed limit remains intact. Space-time may be warped, time may slow relative to distant observers, but locally, nothing outruns light. Identity survives even under extreme distortion. The limit is flexible in how it manifests, but rigid in its consequences. This rigidity is what allows physical law to be universal. Laws apply the same way everywhere because the causal structure is the same everywhere. Different observers may describe events differently, but they will never disagree about which events can influence which. That agreement is what makes science possible. Now consider what happens if identity were not preserved. If a system could be affected by future events, its present state would depend on outcomes that had not yet occurred. Identity would become circular. Cause would depend on effect. The speed of light prevents this by ensuring that influence only flows forward in time within each causal domain. This forward flow is what gives identity direction. A system has a past that influences its present and a present that influences its future. That chain cannot loop back on itself. This is why faster-than-light influence is not just forbidden but meaningless. It would destroy the distinction between cause and effect, and with it, the continuity of identity. The universe refuses to allow such destruction. Instead, it chooses a structure where identity emerges naturally from limitation. This limitation also explains why the universe is not maximally efficient. Efficiency, in the sense of instant response, would destroy structure. The universe sacrifices efficiency to preserve coherence. The speed of light is the cost of having a world that can persist. This becomes especially clear when considering the arrow of time again. The arrow of time is not just about entropy increasing. It is about systems evolving in a way that preserves identity while allowing change. The speed of light ensures that change happens in a controlled, ordered way. It prevents abrupt global rearrangements that would erase continuity. The universe does not jump from state to state, it transitions. Transitions require time. Time requires limits. Another way to understand this is to see that the speed of light limits not just how fast systems can be influenced, but how fast they can lose themselves. Rapid loss of identity would be catastrophic. Systems would dissolve before they could respond. The speed of light slows that dissolution. This slowing allows systems to adapt, stabilize, and evolve. Even decay processes respect this. A particle decays locally. Its influence spreads outward at finite speed. The decay does not instantly affect the entire universe. This locality is what allows the universe to be resilient. Resilience requires that disturbances remain contained long enough for systems to absorb them. The speed of light provides that containment. This containment is not isolation, it is controlled connection. The universe is not composed of independent parts, but of semi-independent parts that interact through delayed influence. This architecture is what allows complexity to emerge without self-destruction. Now consider the possibility that the speed limit could vary. If it varied across space or time, identity would become unstable. Systems moving through regions with different causal structures would experience inconsistent ordering of events. Continuity would break. This is why the speed of light must be constant everywhere. It is not just a convenience, it is a requirement for stable identity. This also explains why attempts to explain the speed of light as emergent often face deep challenges. If the limit emerged from deeper rules, those rules would still need to enforce a consistent causal structure at all scales. Otherwise, identity would fragment. The speed of light may not be fundamental in the deepest sense, but whatever replaces it must play the same role. It must preserve separation, delay, and order. It must allow systems to exist across time without contradiction. The universe cannot function without such a constraint. This brings us back to the original intuition that speed should be unlimited. That intuition assumes that faster is better. The universe does not agree. The universe values continuity over immediacy. It values coherence over efficiency. It values identity over speed. The speed of light is the expression of those priorities. It is the rate at which the universe allows itself to change without tearing itself apart. Without it, nothing could remain itself long enough to be anything at all. With it, the universe becomes a collection of persistent systems, each evolving within its own causal domain, interacting with others through finite, ordered exchange. The speed of light does not constrain identity. It creates it. It allows objects to be objects, systems to be systems, and processes to have duration. It allows the universe to remember what it has been long enough to become something new. That is why the limit is not an obstacle. It is the reason the universe has anything that can be limited in the first place. The speed of light ultimately defines how the universe remains intelligible. Intelligibility is not guaranteed by existence alone. A universe can exist and still be incomprehensible if its events cannot be ordered, compared, or related in a consistent way. The speed limit is what prevents reality from dissolving into an unstructured blur. Understanding requires sequence. Sequence requires order. Order requires limits. Without a maximum speed of influence, every event would be immediately entangled with every other event. There would be no meaningful distinction between near and far, before and after, cause and consequence. The universe would still exist mathematically, but it would not exist in a way that allows explanation. Physics would have nothing to explain. The speed of light gives the universe a syntax. It dictates how events can be arranged into narratives that do not contradict themselves. It allows one event to follow another without ambiguity. This is why the speed limit appears so deeply connected to logic itself. Logical implication depends on ordering. A premise must precede a conclusion. If conclusions could arrive before premises, reasoning would collapse. The universe enforces the same rule. Physical implications cannot precede physical causes. This enforcement is not moral or philosophical. It is structural. The geometry of space-time does not allow paths that invert causal order for physical influence. This structure is what allows the universe to be described by equations that mean the same thing everywhere. It is what allows observers in different states of motion to translate their descriptions into one another without contradiction. Relativity does not destroy objectivity. It preserves it by giving up absolutes that are incompatible with a universal speed limit. Absolute simultaneity is sacrificed. Absolute time is sacrificed. Absolute distance is sacrificed. Causality is not. The speed of light is the price of that preservation. This trade-off also explains why the universe appears counterintuitive at high speeds. Our everyday intuition evolved in a regime where velocities are much smaller than the speed of light. In that regime, time and space appear absolute. When velocities approach the limit, those approximations fail. What we interpret as strangeness is simply the universe revealing its deeper consistency. Time dilation, length contraction, and relativistic mass-energy relationships are not distortions layered onto reality. They are reality correcting our assumptions. The speed of light is the reference against which those corrections are made. This also reveals why attempts to unify physics inevitably revolve around space-time structure. Whether through quantum gravity, string theory, or other approaches, the challenge is always to preserve causality while reconciling different descriptions. Any theory that loses causal structure loses intelligibility. That theory may be mathematically interesting, but it cannot describe a universe that supports observers, explanations, or prediction. The speed of light is therefore not just a constant to be measured, it is a criterion. It determines whether a theoretical framework describes a possible universe or an incoherent one. This criterion applies even to speculative ideas about multiple universes or alternate realities. Any universe that allows internal observers must enforce some version of a speed limit to preserve causal order. The details may differ, but the role must remain. This suggests that the speed of light is not merely contingent, it may be necessary. Not necessary in the sense that no other value is possible, but necessary in the sense that some finite limit must exist. A universe with no limit cannot support intelligibility. A universe with an infinite limit collapses into simultaneity. A universe with a finite limit can support structure. The exact value of the speed of light sets the scale at which that structure unfolds. It determines how large stars can be, how quickly galaxies can form, how fast signals can travel, and how rapidly changes propagate. Change the value and the universe changes. But remove the limit, and the universe stops being a universe in any meaningful sense. This is why the speed of light appears immune to explanation in terms of deeper mechanisms. It is not a process that happens, it is a condition that allows processes to happen. We do not ask why logical implication exists, we ask what follows from it. The speed of light occupies a similar position in physics. It is a rule that defines the game. Within that rule, infinite variety is possible. Without it, there is no game at all. This perspective also reframes the idea of exploration. We often think of faster travel as a path to greater reach and understanding, but understanding does not require immediacy. It requires coherence. The speed of light slows us down, but in doing so it allows meaning to accumulate. A universe that revealed everything instantly would reveal nothing. There would be no discovery, no history, no learning. The speed limit turns the universe into a sequence rather than a snapshot. This sequence is what allows science to exist. It allows experiments to have outcomes that depend on prior conditions. It allows theories to be tested, refined, and corrected. It allows knowledge to grow. All of this depends on the simple fact that influence takes time. The speed of light is the ultimate expression of that fact. It ensures that reality is not overwritten faster than it can be understood. It gives the universe breathing room. This breathing room is not empty space. It is time. Time to react, time to adapt, time to remember. Without it, reality would be instantaneous and meaningless. With it, reality becomes a process. This also explains why the speed of light is not something to be lamented. It is not an obstacle placed in our way. It is the reason there is a way at all. It allows the universe to unfold rather than simply exist. It allows events to have consequences rather than dissolve into simultaneity. It allows existence to have texture. The speed of light is the limit that turns existence into experience. It is the boundary that makes the universe navigable by reason, not because it is fast, but because it is finite. And finiteness, not infinity, is what allows understanding to exist. Without the speed of light, the universe would not be slower. It would be unintelligible. With it, the universe becomes something that can be known, explored, and described without contradiction. That is why the speed of light is a limit. Not to restrict the universe, but to allow it to make sense at all. The speed of light also defines how the universe permits possibility without collapsing into chaos. Possibility, in physics, is not unlimited freedom. It is constrained freedom, freedom that operates within rules that prevent contradiction. The speed limit is one of the most important of those rules. Every physical system exists in a space of possibilities. It can change in some ways and not others. Those possibilities are not chosen arbitrarily. They are shaped by what can influence what and when. The speed of light defines that shape. Without a limit, the space of possibilities would be unbounded. Any event could influence any other event instantly. The result would not be maximal freedom, but maximal instability. Possibilities would interfere with each other before they could resolve into outcomes. The universe avoids this by limiting how quickly possibilities can interact. This limitation allows possibilities to unfold sequentially rather than simultaneously. It allows one outcome to become fixed before another begins to matter. It allows choice, in the physical sense, to exist. Choice does not require consciousness. It requires that systems evolve through branching paths where some possibilities are realized and others are not. That branching requires time. Time requires limits. The speed of light provides those limits. This also explains why the universe does not behave like a single global wave function collapsing everywhere at once. Instead, quantum events are local. Outcomes propagate outward at finite speed. Decoherence spreads gradually, not instantaneously. The speed of light governs that spread. It ensures that quantum possibilities resolve into classical outcomes locally before influencing distant systems. Without this, classical reality would never emerge. The universe would remain a superposition at all scales. The speed limit allows quantum behavior to give rise to classical structure. It provides a boundary within which quantum uncertainty can settle into definite outcomes. This boundary is not arbitrary. It is the same boundary that governs all other forms of influence. The universe uses one rule to manage everything. This rule also explains why the universe can support irreversible processes. Irreversibility depends on information loss. Information loss depends on the inability to perfectly track influences. That inability arises because influences propagate at finite speed. If information could be recovered instantly from everywhere, no process would be irreversible. Entropy would lose meaning. Time would lose direction. The speed of light prevents this by limiting access to information. It ensures that some information is always out of reach, at least temporarily. That temporary inaccessibility accumulates into permanent irreversibility. This is not a flaw, it is what allows time to have an arrow. The speed of light also ensures that physical law remains local rather than global. Local laws are what make physics tractable. They allow us to describe systems without knowing the state of the entire universe. Without a speed limit, laws would have to account for instantaneous global interactions. Every equation would require infinite input. Prediction would be impossible. The universe avoids this by enforcing locality. Locality is not an assumption. It is a consequence of the speed limit. This locality also explains why the universe is modular. Systems can be composed of subsystems that interact through defined channels. These channels have finite capacity and finite speed. This modularity allows complexity to scale. Simple rules can generate complex behavior because interactions are limited and structured. Without limits, complexity would collapse into noise. The speed of light is what prevents that collapse. It also explains why the universe tolerates uncertainty but not contradiction. Uncertainty allows multiple outcomes to coexist until resolved. Contradiction destroys resolution itself. The speed limit allows uncertainty to exist locally while preventing it from propagating in a way that creates paradox. This balance is delicate. The universe allows probability, it allows randomness, it allows indeterminacy, but it does not allow inconsistency. The speed of light is the boundary between those two regimes. This boundary also clarifies why speculative ideas about retrocausality or backward-in-time influence are so constrained. Any such influence must be carefully structured to avoid violating the light cone. Most proposals fail because they cannot preserve causal order. The universe is not hostile to novelty. It is hostile to self-contradiction. The speed of light enforces that hostility quietly and universally. This also explains why the limit does not depend on energy scale. It applies equally to low-energy processes and high-energy ones. It applies to atoms and galaxies alike. This universality is what makes the universe coherent across scales. The same rule governs everything. This is not a coincidence. A universe with multiple competing speed limits would fragment into incompatible domains. Different regions would follow different causal rules. Identity, continuity, and law would fracture. The universe avoids this by choosing a single limit and enforcing it everywhere. This enforcement does not require control. It is built into the metric structure of space-time. Every event automatically inherits a causal boundary. Nothing crosses it. This also means that the speed of light is not something that can be broken in exceptional cases. Exceptional cases would undermine the rule itself. Physics does not allow exceptions to causality, it allows approximations. It allows limits, but it does not allow violations. The speed of light is not an approximation, it is exact. This exactness is what gives physics its precision. It allows experiments performed in different frames to agree on what matters. It allows theory to connect to observation without ambiguity. This precision also explains why the speed of light appears in constants that define the structure of matter itself. It sets the scale at which energy, mass, and momentum relate. It determines how particles behave at fundamental levels. It is woven into the fabric of reality. This weaving is so deep that asking why this limit may be the wrong question. The better question may be, what would reality be without it? So far, every attempt to imagine such a reality leads to incoherence. A universe without a speed limit would not be more powerful, it would be less meaningful. It would not allow possibility to resolve into actuality. It would not allow choice to become outcome. It would not allow structure to persist. The speed of light is therefore not a constraint on possibility. It is what makes possibility meaningful. It ensures that not everything happens at once. It ensures that some things happen before others. It ensures that outcomes can be distinguished from alternatives. It ensures that the universe can evolve rather than merely exist. This is the final role of the limit. It is the rule that allows the universe to explore its possibilities without collapsing under them. It allows freedom with order. Change with continuity, novelty without contradiction. The speed of light does not limit what the universe can be. It limits how fast it can become it. And that limit is what makes becoming possible at all. The speed of light ultimately defines how the universe protects coherence while allowing complexity to unfold. Coherence is not the absence of change. It is the ability of change to accumulate without contradiction. The universe does not aim to freeze itself. It aims to remain self-consistent as it evolves. The speed limit is the rule that makes this possible. Every interaction in the universe is constrained by how quickly influence can travel. That constraint ensures that interactions remain ordered rather than chaotic. Without it, changes would overlap before they could resolve. Causes and effects would blur into one another. Physical law would lose its grip. The universe chooses a different path. It slows itself down just enough to remain legible. This legibility is not for observers alone, it is for the universe itself. A system that cannot preserve internal consistency cannot exist for long. The speed of light ensures that consistency is preserved automatically, without oversight. This becomes clear when we consider how complex systems form. Complexity does not arise from instantaneous interaction. It arises from layered processes that build upon one another. Each layer must stabilize before the next can emerge. The speed of light enforces that layering. It prevents lower-level processes from being overwritten by higher-level ones before they have settled. It gives systems time to become what they are before being influenced by what they are not yet. This is why stars can form, stabilize, and burn for billions of years. This is why planets can settle into orbits. This is why chemistry can develop. This is why biological evolution is possible. All of these processes require delayed influence. They require time for feedback to propagate. The speed of light provides that time. This also explains why the universe tolerates imperfections. Signals are delayed. Information arrives incomplete. Systems respond based on partial knowledge. This imperfection is not a flaw. It is a feature. Perfect instantaneous information would destroy adaptability. Systems would have no room to respond. They would be overwhelmed by total knowledge. The speed of light limits knowledge in a way that allows learning. Learning requires error. Error requires delay. Delay requires a limit. The universe allows learning because it enforces slowness. This slowness is not inefficiency, it is resilience. Resilience requires that systems absorb disturbances without being instantly transformed. The speed of light ensures that disturbances spread gradually. This allows systems to damp them, redirect them, or incorporate them. Without the limit, disturbances would be global. Nothing could adapt. This is another reason why the speed of light appears as a hard boundary rather than a soft guideline. Soft guidelines would allow rare violations. Rare violations would allow catastrophic chains of influence. The universe does not allow that risk. It enforces the limit everywhere, always. This enforcement is not authoritarian. It is structural. It arises from the geometry of spacetime itself. Spacetime is not a stage on which physics plays out. It is an active participant. Its geometry determines what is possible. The speed of light is encoded in that geometry. This encoding ensures that no matter how extreme conditions become, the basic ordering of events remains intact. Black holes warp spacetime, but they do not allow signals to escape faster than light. Expansion stretches distances, but it does not allow local violations of causality. Quantum effects produce correlations, but they do not allow controllable faster-than-light influence. The rule holds everywhere. This universality is what allows physics to be universal. Laws apply in the same way across the cosmos because the causal structure is the same everywhere. The speed of light is the thread that stitches the universe together into a single coherent system. Without it, the universe would fragment into regions with incompatible rules. Identity, continuity, and predictability would dissolve. The speed limit prevents that fragmentation. This also sheds light on why the speed of light has the value it does. The exact numerical value may be contingent, but the existence of a finite limit is not. A universe without a finite speed limit cannot support coherent evolution. A universe with a finite limit can. The value of that limit determines the scale at which coherence and complexity operate. In our universe, the value allows stars, galaxies, and life to exist. It allows signals to travel fast enough to connect regions, but slow enough to preserve independence. This balance is not guaranteed in all possible universes. It is a feature of this one. The speed of light also ensures that the universe remains open-ended without being unstable. Open-endedness requires that not everything is determined instantly. It requires that future states are not fully fixed by present ones in a global sense. The speed limit ensures that determination propagates gradually. This allows new patterns to emerge. The universe is not pre-written, it unfolds. That unfolding depends on finite speed. Without it, everything would be fixed at once. The speed of light gives the universe room to surprise itself. This surprise is not randomness alone. It is structured unpredictability. It is the emergence of new configurations that were not explicitly encoded in the initial conditions. This emergence requires time. Time requires limits. This also explains why the universe can sustain long histories. History is not just a record of past states. It is the accumulation of consequences. Consequences require delay. If consequences arrived instantly, nothing would accumulate. There would be no narrative, no development, no irreversible change. The speed of light is the reason history exists. It ensures that actions have delayed effects, allowing chains of cause and effect to form. These chains are what give the universe depth. Without them, reality would be flat. The speed limit gives reality dimension. It also explains why the universe does not collapse under its own complexity. Complexity increases interactions. Interactions increase the potential for conflict. Without limits, complexity would self-destruct. The speed of light limits interaction rates, allowing complexity to grow without imploding. This is a subtle but critical point. The universe is not optimized for maximal interaction. It is optimized for sustainable interaction. Sustainability requires limits. The speed of light is the most fundamental of those limits. This sustainability also explains why the universe is not static. Limits do not freeze systems. They guide their evolution. The speed of light does not prevent change. It shapes it. It ensures that change occurs in a way that preserves coherence across time. This shaping is why the universe appears lawful rather than arbitrary. Laws are constraints that allow structure. The speed of light is one of the deepest such constraints. It is not a rule written into the universe from outside. It is the condition that allows the universe to write rules at all. When we ask why the speed of light is a limit, we are really asking why the universe values coherence over immediacy. The answer is simple. Without coherence, nothing can exist long enough to matter. The speed of light is the universe's way of slowing itself down just enough to remain itself. It is the quiet boundary that allows complexity without contradiction. It is the reason the universe can change without tearing itself apart. Not because it forbids faster motion, but because it makes meaningful motion possible. This is why the speed of light is not a wall to be broken. It is the framework that holds everything together. Without it, there would be no physics. With it, there is a universe. The speed of light finally reveals itself as the condition that allows reality to have structure, without freezing into rigidity. Structure requires limits, but too many limits prevent change. Too few limits allow contradiction. The universe exists in a narrow region between these extremes, and the speed of light is one of the boundaries that holds that region together. This boundary does not prevent the universe from exploring its possibilities. It regulates the pace at which exploration happens. Without regulation, exploration would collapse into simultaneity. Everything that could happen would happen at once, and nothing would persist long enough to become real in a physical sense. The speed of light stretches possibility across time, allowing outcomes to form, stabilize, and interact without being erased immediately. This stretching is what gives the universe depth. Depth is not just spatial, it is temporal. It is the ability for present states to carry information from the past while remaining open to the future. The speed of light ensures that information flows forward in an ordered way, creating continuity rather than confusion. Continuity is what allows patterns to emerge. Patterns are not imposed. They arise when systems interact repeatedly under stable rules. For interactions to repeat, they must not be overwhelmed by external influence. The speed of light provides that protection by limiting how quickly influence spreads. This protection is not isolation. Systems remain connected, but they are not instantaneously connected. That difference is everything. It is the difference between noise and signal, between chaos and complexity. The universe does not maximize speed. It maximizes coherence. This is why the speed of light is not negotiable. It is not something that can be adjusted without unraveling the framework of physical law. Change the limit, and the balance between interaction and independence shifts. Remove it, and balance disappears entirely. The universe would not become freer, it would become incoherent. Incoherence is not disorder in the everyday sense. It is the inability for rules to apply consistently. It is the collapse of explanation itself. Physics depends on the idea that the same causes produce the same effects under the same conditions. That assumption requires a stable causal structure. The speed of light is the backbone of that structure. This is why every successful physical theory respects the limit. It may reinterpret it. It may hide it behind new mathematics, but it cannot remove it. Any theory that allows faster than light influence without consequence quickly generates contradictions. The universe does not allow contradictions to accumulate. It allows uncertainty, randomness, and probability. These introduce flexibility. But it does not allow logical inconsistency. The speed of light enforces that boundary. This enforcement is not active. There is no cosmic policeman stopping signals at the limit. The enforcement arises because paths that violate the limit do not correspond to physically meaningful trajectories. They exist on paper but not in reality. This distinction between mathematical possibility and physical possibility is crucial. Physics is not the study of everything that can be imagined. It is the study of what can happen without contradiction. The speed of light is one of the rules that separates imagination from reality. This also explains why the universe tolerates extreme phenomena without breaking the limit. Near black holes, time slows and space bends. Near the beginning of the universe, energies soar. At quantum scales, uncertainty dominates. Yet through all of this, the causal structure remains intact. Signals do not outrun light. Effects do not precede causes. The universe bends, but it does not break. This resilience suggests that the speed of light is not an accident of early conditions, but a deep feature of how reality maintains coherence across scales. Even if space-time itself emerges from a deeper layer of physics, whatever replaces it must reproduce the same causal structure. Otherwise, the universe would not be a place where processes can unfold. This insight also reframes how we think about limits in general. Limits are often seen as restrictions imposed on an otherwise boundless world. In physics, limits are often what allow worlds to exist at all. The speed of light is not a wall, it is a scaffolding. It holds reality up while allowing it to grow. This growth is not arbitrary. It follows paths carved by causality. Those paths ensure that outcomes are meaningful rather than self-negating. The universe does not rush toward its future. It unfolds into it. That unfolding depends on finite speed. This is why the speed of light appears everywhere in physics. It is not because light is special. It is because the universe is careful. it cares about order. It cares about continuity. It cares about preserving the ability for things to happen one after another without contradiction. The speed of light is how that care is expressed. When we imagine overcoming the limit, we imagine freedom. But what we are really imagining is a universe without delay. A universe without delay is a universe without memory. Without memory, nothing can persist. Without persistence, nothing can matter. The speed of light allows memory to exist. It allows the past to influence the present without being overwritten by it. It allows the future to remain open without being predetermined by instantaneous global interaction. This balance is delicate, and it is enforced everywhere, not because the universe is fragile, but because it is consistent. Consistency is not optional. Without it, there is no physics, no explanation, no identity, no history. The speed of light is the constant that preserves consistency across the entire structure of reality. It is the boundary that separates meaningful evolution from incoherent simultaneity. It is the rule that allows change without contradiction. When we ask why the speed of light is a limit, the answer is not that the universe cannot go faster. The answer is that the universe cannot remain a universe if it does. The limit exists because reality requires order to exist at all, and the speed of light is the simplest, deepest way to enforce that order, not as a barrier, but as the quiet rule that makes everything else possible. At the deepest level, the speed of light tells us that reality is not built to be instantaneous. It is built to be consistent. Consistency is not an optional feature layered on top of existence. It is the condition that allows existence to unfold without collapsing into contradiction. This becomes clear when we consider that the universe is not a static object but a process. Every moment is linked to the next by rules that govern how information, energy, and influence move. Those rules must be compatible with one another across all frames of reference. The speed of light is the condition that makes that compatibility possible. Without a finite limit, the universe would be forced into one of two extremes. Either everything would be instantly connected to everything else, or nothing would be meaningfully connected at all. In the first case, simultaneity would dominate. Every event would be entangled with every other event immediately. There would be no sequence, no layering, no persistence. In the second case, if influence were arbitrarily slow or undefined, systems would fragment into isolated points, unable to interact coherently. The speed of light places the universe between these extremes. It allows connection without collapse. It allows separation without isolation. This balance is not a coincidence. It is a structural necessity. Consider how physical law operates. Laws describe how systems respond to influences. If influences arrived instantaneously, laws would have no time to operate locally. Every response would be global, immediate, and indistinguishable from every other response. Law would dissolve into simultaneity. If influences arrived unpredictably or inconsistently, laws would fail to apply uniformly. Outcomes would depend on arbitrary timing rather than defined relationships. The speed of light prevents both failures. It ensures that influences propagate in a controlled, predictable way. It ensures that systems have time to respond according to local conditions. It ensures that laws can be applied repeatedly without contradiction. This is why the universe can be described by differential equations rather than global constraints. Differential equations rely on locality. They assume that what happens next depends on what is happening nearby, not on what is happening everywhere else at once. The speed of light is what makes locality real. Locality is not just a convenience for calculation. It is the reason complexity can exist. Complex systems are built from interactions between parts that influence one another gradually. They require partial independence. They require delay. Without delay, parts cannot maintain identity long enough to form wholes. The speed of light gives the universe patience. This patience is not infinite, it is precisely bounded. That boundedness is what gives the universe rhythm rather than stasis. Change occurs, but not all at once. Influence spreads, but not instantly. Consequences follow causes, but not before. This ordered unfolding is what we experience as time. Time in this sense is not just a parameter, it is the record of delayed influence. Without a speed limit, time would lose its physical meaning. There would be no delay to record, no order to preserve. The speed of light anchors time to causality. This anchoring is why time cannot be reversed at will. Reversal would require influence to flow backward through the same structure that enforces forward propagation. That structure does not allow it. The universe does not permit symmetrical freedom in time because such freedom would destroy order. The speed of light is asymmetric with respect to time. It allows influence to propagate forward, not backward. This asymmetry is tied to entropy, but it is enforced by causality. Entropy alone cannot prevent backward influence if faster than light signals were allowed. The speed limit closes that door completely. This closure is what allows the arrow of time to be more than a statistical tendency. It becomes a structural feature. Another way to see this is to recognize that the speed of light limits not only what can influence what, but what can be coordinated. Coordination requires synchronization. Synchronization requires signals. Signals require time to travel. The speed of light sets the maximum scale over which coordination is possible within a given time frame. Without this limit, coordination would be global and instantaneous. Systems would lose autonomy. Everything would be synchronized to everything else at all times. With the limit, coordination becomes layered. Local systems coordinate internally. Larger systems coordinate more slowly. Global coordination, if it exists at all, takes immense time. This hierarchy of coordination is what allows the universe to host structures at many scales simultaneously. Atoms do not need to coordinate with galaxies to exist. Cells do not need to coordinate with stars. Each scale operates within its own causal domain, interacting with others gradually. The speed of light enforces this hierarchy. This enforcement also explains why the universe is robust against disturbances. A disturbance remains local long enough for systems to respond. It does not instantly destabilize everything. Robustness requires delay. Delay requires a limit. The speed of light is the ultimate delay. This is why the limit remains intact even in the most extreme conditions. Near black holes, near the early universe, near quantum extremes, the causal structure remains. Space-time may stretch, twist, or compress, but it does not allow influence to outrun light. The universe may bend its rules in appearance, but not in substance. This consistency is what allows the universe to survive its own extremes. Without it, extreme events would tear reality apart logically, not physically. The speed of light prevents that. It is not a feature added to the universe to slow it down. It is the condition that prevents it from self-destructing conceptually. This becomes especially important when considering that the universe does not have an external reference frame. There is no outside vantage point from which rules are enforced. The universe enforces its own coherence internally. The speed of light is part of that self-enforcement. It is a self-consistency condition. Any process that would violate it cannot be consistently defined within the universe, and therefore cannot occur. This is why the limit is not something that can be circumvented by clever engineering. Engineering works within the rules, it does not rewrite them. Even hypothetical technologies that manipulate space-time must respect the local causal structure. They may rearrange distances, but they cannot create paths that allow influence to outrun light locally. The limit is absolute because it is foundational. This also explains why the speed of light appears as a constant rather than a variable. If it varied, the causal structure would vary. Laws would apply differently in different regions or times. Continuity would fracture. The universe avoids this by enforcing uniformity. Uniformity of the speed limit is what allows laws to be universal. This universality is what allows the universe to be described by a single framework rather than a patchwork of incompatible rules. The speed of light is the thread that weaves those rules together. It is not the fastest thing. It is the fastest allowed relationship. It is the boundary that distinguishes meaningful influence from meaningless coincidence. When we strip away intuition and metaphor, the reason the speed of light is a limit becomes simple. The universe must choose between immediacy and coherence. It chooses coherence. That choice requires a finite speed at which influence propagates. That speed defines the structure of space-time. That structure defines causality. Causality defines order. Order defines intelligibility. Intelligibility defines reality as something that can exist without contradiction. The speed of light is not a constraint imposed on an otherwise limitless universe. It is the rule that allows a universe to be a universe at all. Without it, existence would not unfold. It would collapse into simultaneity or fragmentation. With it, existence becomes a process rather than a blur, a sequence rather than a snapshot, a universe rather than an equation with no solution. This is why the speed of light remains unbroken, unbent, and uncompromised. Not because nothing can go faster, but because nothing meaningful can exist if it does. The speed of light ultimately marks the point where reality refuses to become self-contradictory. It is the line the universe draws to preserve coherence across everything that exists within it. This is not a preference, and it is not a limitation imposed from outside. It is a necessity that arises from the requirement that events be ordered, connected, and capable of forming histories without collapsing into paradox. At this depth, the limit is no longer about motion, energy, or even information in the ordinary sense. It is about the conditions under which existence can remain meaningful. Meaning in physics does not come from intention or interpretation. It comes from relationships that persist across time. The speed of light ensures that those relationships are not overridden before they can be established. Every physical relationship requires duration. A force must act. A signal must travel. A system must respond. Without duration, relationships collapse into simultaneity. When everything happens at once, nothing happens in a way that can be distinguished from anything else. The universe avoids this by enforcing delay. Delay is the deepest function of the speed of light. This delay is what allows the universe to separate potential from actuality. Potential exists everywhere, but actuality emerges locally, step by step. The speed of light ensures that potential does not immediately overwhelm actuality. It gives outcomes time to form before being influenced by new possibilities. This distinction is crucial. A universe where everything possible happens instantly is not a universe with infinite richness. It is a universe with no structure. Richness requires unfolding. Unfolding requires time. Time requires limits. The speed of light is that limit. This is why the universe does not permit even partial violations. A single faster-than-light influence is not an isolated anomaly. It is the opening of a logical fracture. Once influence can outrun causality, the ordering of events becomes observer-dependent in a destructive way. Outcomes lose definition. Histories become inconsistent. The universe does not repair such fractures. It prevents them from forming. This prevention is built into the geometry of space-time. Space-time does not merely host events. It organizes them. Its structure defines which events can be related and which cannot. The speed of light defines that structure. It is the boundary between what can belong to the same physical story and what cannot. Inside that boundary, events can influence each other. They can form chains of cause and effect. They can accumulate consequences. Outside it, events are unrelated. They coexist mathematically but not physically. This separation is what allows reality to have texture. Texture requires that not everything is equally relevant to everything else. The speed of light enforces relevance. This also explains why the universe does not allow shortcuts through time. Time travel to the past would require influence to move outside the light cone. That influence would destroy the ordering that gives time meaning in the first place. The universe does not forbid time travel because it is dangerous. It forbids it because it is undefined, An effect that occurs before its cause cannot be assigned a consistent explanation. Physics cannot describe such a situation without contradiction. The speed of light is the rule that keeps explanations possible. This rule also ensures that the universe is not brittle. Brittle systems fail catastrophically when stressed. The universe is resilient because disturbances propagate at finite speed. They remain local long enough to be absorbed, redirected, or dissipated. This resilience is not accidental. It is the consequence of limits. Unlimited speed would make the universe fragile. Any disturbance anywhere would instantly affect everything. No system could maintain stability. The speed of light protects stability by limiting reach. This protection does not isolate systems completely. It connects them through controlled channels. Influence spreads, but it spreads gradually. This gradual spread allows systems to respond rather than be overwhelmed. This balance between connection and protection is the essence of coherence. The universe does not maximize interaction, it maximizes sustainable interaction. The speed of light is the rule that enforces sustainability. At this level, the question of why the speed of light has its particular value becomes secondary. The existence of a finite limit matters more than its numerical magnitude. A universe with a different value might still function, but a universe with no limit would not. Some finite speed must exist for causality to hold. Our universe chooses one that allows complexity across enormous scales. The speed of light allows galaxies to form without synchronizing instantly. It allows stars to evolve independently. It allows chemistry to operate locally. It allows information processing to occur without global interference. All of this depends on the same rule. The universe is not optimized for immediacy. It is optimized for continuity. Continuity is what allows identity to persist across time. Without continuity, nothing could remain itself long enough to be something. The speed of light ensures continuity by enforcing that changes arrive in an ordered sequence rather than all at once. This ordered arrival is what allows memory. Memory is not a mental phenomenon. It is a physical one. It is the persistence of information across time. For memory to exist, information must not be overwritten instantly. The speed of light prevents instant overwriting. This is why the universe can have history. History is not just a record. It is the accumulation of irreversible changes. Irreversibility depends on delayed influence and limited information access. The speed of light enables both. It ensures that some information is always out of reach, at least temporarily. That temporary inaccessibility accumulates into permanent irreversibility. This irreversibility gives time direction. Without the speed limit, time would lose its arrow. The universe would not know which way is forward. The speed of light gives time orientation by enforcing that influence flows in one direction along light cones. This orientation is what allows evolution, development, and emergence. It allows simple rules to generate complex outcomes over time. Without it, everything would be fixed instantly or fluctuate incoherently. The speed of light gives the universe room to change without collapsing. This room is not empty. It is filled with duration. Duration is what allows cause to become effect rather than coincidence. This is why the speed of light cannot be bypassed by clever tricks. Tricks work within rules, they do not rewrite the framework. Even hypothetical manipulations of space-time must preserve local causality. They may alter distances, but they cannot allow influence to outrun light locally. The universe enforces this not because it resists novelty, but because novelty without order is meaningless. Order without novelty is static. The speed of light balances the two. It allows novelty to arise gradually within a stable framework. This balance is the deepest reason the limit exists. It is not to stop motion. It is to preserve meaning. Meaning, in physics, is not subjective. It is the ability to relate events without contradiction. The speed of light ensures that such relations exist. Without it, the universe would not be richer, it would be incoherent. With it, the universe becomes a process rather than a contradiction, a sequence rather than a simultaneity, a history rather than an instant. The speed of light is the boundary that makes that possible, not because it is fast, too, but because it is finite. And finiteness is what allows existence to unfold rather than collapse. This is the final role of the limit. It is the condition under which reality remains itself, not frozen, not chaotic, but coherent, continuous, and capable of becoming something rather than nothing. The speed of light, taken to its deepest implication, is the universe's commitment to non-contradiction. It is the rule that prevents reality from undermining itself, while still allowing change, novelty, and complexity to occur. At this level, the limit is no longer about travel, communication, or technology. It is about whether a universe can remain internally consistent while evolving. Consistency is not automatic. A universe can exist mathematically and still fail to support coherent processes. For processes to exist, there must be an order in which events happen, a way to distinguish influence from coincidence, and a framework that prevents outcomes from invalidating their own causes. The speed of light is the mechanism that enforces this order. Every event in the universe is embedded in a causal structure. That structure determines which other events it can affect and which events can affect it. The speed of light defines the shape of that structure. It is the slope of the boundary that separates influence from irrelevance. This boundary is not arbitrary. It is what allows events to belong to a shared reality rather than a contradictory one. If influence could propagate without limit, the universe would face an impossible task. It would have to reconcile mutually incompatible event orderings across different perspectives. There would be no single, coherent history. Every event would both depend on and negate every other event. The universe avoids this by enforcing a finite speed of influence. This enforcement is not external. There is no rule book outside reality dictating what is allowed. The enforcement arises because paths that violate the limit do not correspond to physically meaningful trajectories. They cannot be assigned consistent energy, momentum, or causal direction. They are not forbidden, they are undefined. This distinction matters. Physics does not say faster than light is illegal. It says faster than light does not correspond to a physically coherent process. Coherence is the key word. A coherent universe is one where local rules can be applied repeatedly without contradiction. That requires that events have neighborhoods, that influence spreads gradually, and that outcomes are not overwritten before they can stabilize. The speed of light ensures all of this. It forces the universe to update itself locally rather than globally. Local updates allow structure to form. Global updates would erase it. This local updating is what allows the universe to have scale. Small systems can exist within larger systems without being instantly absorbed into them. Atoms can exist within stars. Stars can exist within galaxies. Galaxies can exist within clusters. Each level interacts with others, but not instantaneously. The speed of light enforces this hierarchy. Hierarchy is not dominance, it is organization. It is what allows different processes to operate on different timescales without interfering destructively with one another. Without a speed limit, timescales would collapse. Everything would happen at once or not at all. The universe chooses neither. It chooses layered time. This layering is what allows emergence. Emergence is not magic. It is what happens when lower level processes stabilize long enough for higher level patterns to form. Those patterns require persistence. Persistence requires delay. Delay requires a limit. The speed of light is that limit. This also clarifies why the universe can tolerate uncertainty but not paradox. Uncertainty allows multiple futures to remain possible until one is realized. Paradox collapses realization itself. The speed of light allows uncertainty to exist locally without propagating in a way that creates contradiction. It ensures that outcomes resolve before influencing distant systems. This resolution is what allows probability to become fact. Without the limit, probabilities would overlap globally. Outcomes would interfere with themselves. Reality would never settle. The universe prevents this by enforcing causal separation. This separation is not isolation, it is controlled connection. Controlled connection is what allows systems to interact meaningfully. Meaningful interaction requires that a signal arrives after it is sent, not before. It requires that response follows stimulus, not the other way around. The speed of light guarantees this ordering. This is why time travel to the past is not merely difficult but incoherent. It would require influence to escape the causal structure that gives time meaning. Such influence would erase the distinction between before and after. The universe does not allow that erasure. It does not allow events to undermine their own conditions of existence. This self-protection is not conscious, it is structural. The speed of light is part of the structure that keeps reality from folding in on itself. This structure also explains why the universe is not maximally efficient. Efficiency, defined as instant response, would destroy coherence. The universe sacrifices efficiency to preserve stability. This sacrifice is not a weakness, it is a strength. It allows systems to exist long enough to matter. The speed of light also explains why there is no single now that spans the universe. Simultaneity is relative, because enforcing absolute simultaneity would require instantaneous coordination across all of space. That would violate the limit. Instead, the universe allows each region to have its own local present, connected to others through finite propagation. This may seem strange, but it is the price of coherence. The universe chooses relative simultaneity to preserve absolute causality. This choice shapes everything from particle physics to cosmology. It is why distant events can be simultaneous in one frame and not in another, yet still never violate cause and effect. The speed of light is the invariant that makes this possible. Invariant does not mean rigid in appearance, it means unbreakable in consequence. Space-time can stretch, bend and warp. Clocks can slow, lengths can contract, horizons can form, but the causal structure remains intact. This integrity is what allows physics to be universal rather than contextual. The same laws apply everywhere because the same causal structure applies everywhere. Without the speed of light, law would fragment. Different regions would follow incompatible rules, identity would dissolve, history would lose meaning. The universe avoids this by enforcing a single universal limit. This universality is not negotiable. Any attempt to imagine a universe without it results in either triviality or contradiction. Either nothing interacts meaningfully or everything interacts at once. Neither case allows complexity. The speed of light sits between these extremes. It allows interaction without collapse. It allows change without contradiction. It allows freedom within order. This is why the speed of light appears not as a convenience but as a necessity. It is the minimal condition required for a universe to host processes rather than snapshots. Processes require time. Time requires order. Order requires limits. The speed of light is the deepest of those limits. It does not exist to frustrate ambition or curiosity. It exists to make ambition and curiosity possible. Without it, there would be no discovery, no history, no development, no emergence. Everything would be simultaneous and meaningless. With it, the universe becomes a story rather than a static equation. A story where events follow one another without contradiction. A story where causes precede effects. A story where systems can exist, interact and persist. The speed of light is not the end of possibility. It is the condition that allows possibility to unfold. Not instantly, but coherently. And coherence, not speed, is what allows reality to be real at all.